are scary. And the Grimm fairy tale that I'm going to tell you today is very scary indeed. If I get to a point in the story that I'm telling today that you don't want to hear, if you feel scared or grossed out or upset, this is what I want you to do. And I'm serious about it. I want you to 2 fingers. Show me 2 fingers. Hold on. Let me see them. I want you to close your ears and look in your lap. And you can count to 5 or 10, and by the time you're finished counting, I'll be done with the scary, gross, upsetting part, and we will be good to go. But it's important that you do that so that you feel comfortable, okay? Also, that way your parents can't sue me later. All right? I make a joke about that, but honestly, it's the kids are usually fine. It's usually the parents who are upset by the stories, so parents' fingers, okay? All right. This is one of my favorite stories. You guys have all heard it before, but my guess is you've never heard the real Grimm version of it. And I have done some serious research, and this is true, to find the earliest version of the story, the first one ever written down by the Brothers Grimm. The story is called, and the real one is pretty gross. It's called Snow White. Once upon a time there was a beautiful queen, and she was sitting by her window. It was a snowy winter's day, and she was sewing and watching the snow fall. And as she watched the snow fall, her hand slipped, and the needle pricked her thumb. And blood beaded up on her thumb and fell from her thumb onto the snowy windowsill. And when she saw the red blood on the white snow on the black windowsill, she sighed. And she said, "Oh, how I wish I had a child, as red as blood, as white as snow, as hair as black as the windowsill." Which is weird, because when I start bleeding, my first thought is not, "Oh, I want to have kids now." But that was her first thought. So anyway, the months went by, and as they did, she grew round with child. And after 9 months, she had a little baby girl as red as blood, as white as snow, with hair as black as the windowsill. And the queen, took one look at this little girl, and she was so happy that she died. I know it's surprising, but it used to happen all the time in the old days. It was very common. She's like, "I'm so happy." Dead. She died. Now, the father did not know what to do with this little girl all by himself, so he married another woman, a very beautiful woman, but a very wicked woman. We all know about this woman, right? We call her the evil stepmother, or the evil queen, right?
I think I know the story.
Yeah, I think you do too. Yeah. But in the very first version of the story, in the original version the Brothers Grimm ever wrote down, that whole thing I just told you about the mother being so happy that she died, didn't happen. In the very first version of the story, the evil queen is not Snow White's stepmother. It is her real mother. And that is the version I'm going to tell you now. Those of you sitting in your real mother's laps, don't get freaked out, okay? So everything was fine in the palace. There was just one weird thing about living in the palace with Snow White's mother, which was this. She had a mirror. You guys know about the mirror, right? She would look in the mirror and she would say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would always look back and say, "You, queen, are the fairest of them all." Until one day, when Snow White was about 7 years old. Anyone here 7 years old? How old are you? 7? See, that's what I thought. When Snow White was about 7 years old, her mother looks in the mirror and says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror says, "You, queen, are the fairest here. But little Snow White is fairer than you by far." And the mother says, "What? I'm going to kill that little punk." Or something like that. It's German, so it's translated. Approximately that's what she says. So the queen calls the huntsman to her. Now the huntsman's the man who used to go out in the forest and find wild animals and kill them and bring them back for dinner. She says to the huntsman, she says, "I want you to take little Snow White out into the forest, and I want you to kill her. And I want you, fingers ready, right now, it's gross. I want you to cut out her lungs and her liver and bring them back to me so that I may boil them in salt and eat them." This is the real version of the story. Now I have a question before I continue. Yeah, it is gross, right? Why would Snow White's mother want to eat her daughter's lungs and liver? What do you think? Why would she want to do that? What do you think?
It's because, like, in this version, I don't think it's, like, the lungs and liver. I think it's her heart.
So in later versions the Brothers Grimm wrote down, you're right, they changed it to her heart. The Brothers Grimm did because they thought it was cool. But in the first one they wrote down, it was the lungs and liver. And I prefer that because it's even grosser.
Well, I think the lungs and liver hold sweet.
Hold the what? The sweet? The kindness? I love that idea. So maybe if she eats the lungs and liver, she will become as kind and as fair as Snow White. I love that.
Yeah, but not really.
Yeah, you don't think it would actually work. Yeah, me neither. Any other theories about why she ate the lungs and liver? Yes.
But she's jealous.
She's jealous of her. Yes, totally. And I think she does. She wants to, yeah.
Does it taste better than people's hearts?
Yes, they do. And it's true that she's trying to steal her beauty. Now let's just be clear. This doesn't work in real life, right? If you're playing basketball with somebody and they're better at basketball than you are, don't kill them and eat their lungs and liver. You're not going to get a great jump shot, okay? It doesn't work, all right? But anyway, oh, you have to go? No! Oh, I'm so sorry.
Baby, we have to go.
Okay. So, the huntsman takes little Snow White into the forest. He's about to kill her, and little Snow White says, "Snow White, please, don't kill me. I don't want to die." And the huntsman says, "I didn't want to kill you. Just run away into the forest and never come back." So she does. She runs off into the forest, and the huntsman, just as she does, a wild boar, like a wild pig, comes into the clearing. He catches it, and he kills it, and he cuts out its lungs and its liver, and he brings them back to Snow White's mother, and she boils them in salt, and she eats them, thinking that they are her daughters. Now, she doesn't end up looking like a boar, so her whole theory was wrong. Little Snow White is wandering through the forest, and she's tired, and she's thirsty. And she comes to a little house, and she knocks on the door. Nobody opens the door. She pushes the door open, and she walks inside and sees a long table set with 7 little plates. And she's very hungry. She takes a bite from each little plate. And there's 7 little cups, and she's very thirsty. And she takes a sip from each little cup. And there's 7 little beds, and she's very tired. So she lies on the first one. It's too hard. She lies on the second one. Too soft. Next one's too wide. Next one's too narrow. What story does this sound like? Sounds like Goldilocks, right? A lot of these fairy tales have details that get repeated from fairy tale to fairy tale. It's called a motif. It shows up in a lot of different stories. Anyway, she gets to the 7th bed. It's just right. She falls asleep. A little while later, the owners of the house come home. There are 7 of them. They are dwarves. Now, they don't have names like in the movie. They're not like Happy and Sleepy and Stupid and whatever names in the movie. But they come in and one of them says, "Hey, somebody eat it from my plate." And one says, "Somebody drink from my cup." And one says, "Somebody eat from my plate and drink from my cup." And one says, "Somebody sleep in my bed." And somebody sleep in my bed. And somebody sleep in my bed. And the 7 dwarves are like, "Hey, guys, there's still somebody sleeping in my bed right now." So they all come over and they see that little Snow White is sleeping there. And they don't want to wake her up. So they let her sleep until the morning. And in the morning when she wakes up, they ask her what she's doing there. And she explains that her mother tried to kill her. And she had to run away. So they invite her to live with them in the house as long as she works and does her part. And she agrees. Meanwhile, back in the palace, Snow White's mother sits down in front of her mirror. And she says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror looks back and says, "You, queen, are the fairest here. But little Snow White, living with the 7 dwarves in the forest, is fairer than you by far." And the mother says, "What? I'm going to kill that little punk." So she goes to her closet, opens up her closet, and in her closet she has an old lady costume. I don't know why the queen has an old lady costume in her closet. I don't know where she got it, like JCPenney for old ladies. I'm not sure. But she takes the old lady costume and she puts it on. And she takes a basket full of laces. Now, in the old days, women used to have to wear laces to keep their dresses or their corsets uptight. Right? So she takes a basket of these laces. She goes out into the forest, finds the 7 dwarfs' little house, knocks on the door. Little Snow White opens the door. And her mother, disguised as an old woman, says, "Little girl, would you like to try one of these beautiful dress laces?" Little Snow White looks at all the dress laces in the basket and she says, "Mm-hmm." And her mother says, "Turn around." So Snow White turns around and her mother starts to lace up her dress. And she laces it tighter and tighter and tighter. So little Snow White goes, "Ah, ah, ah," and she falls down, dead. And her mother smiles, turns around, and goes back to the palace. A little while later, the 7 dwarves come home, and they open the door, and they see little Snow White lying on the floor, and they go, "Oh, no!" So they shake her, but she doesn't wake up. So they slap her in the face. She doesn't wake up. They throw water on her. She doesn't wake up. They turn her over. They see that her dress laces are tied so tightly, so they cut them. And as soon as they cut them, little Snow White goes, and comes back to life. At just that moment, back in the palace, Snow White's mother sits down in front of her mirror, and she says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror says, "You, queen, are the fairest here. But little Snow White, living with the 7 dwarves in the forest, is fairer than you by far." And the mother says, "If you know what to say, you can say it with me." She says, "What? I'm going to kill that little punk." None of you knew I was going to say that? Yeah, I just went too fast for you. Anyway, so she goes to her closet, opens up her closet. In her closet, she has another completely different old lady costume, because they were clearly on sale at JCPenney for old ladies. So she takes this old lady costume and she puts it on. And this time, she takes a basket full of hair combs. And she takes each comb and she puts poison on each point of each comb. And she carries out this basket of poison combs out into the forest. She finds the 7 dwarfs' little house, knocks on the door, little Snow White opens the door, and her mother, disguised as a completely different old lady, says, "Little girl, would you like to try one of these beautiful hair combs?" Little Snow White says, "I'm not supposed to let any strangers in the house. The dwarves told me not to let any strangers in the house." And her mother says, "I don't want to come in. Wouldn't you like to try one of these beautiful hair combs?" Little Snow White looks at all the combs in the basket and she says, "Mm-hmm." So she takes one of the hair combs and starts to pass it through her black hair. And as soon as the poison tip of the comb touched her scalp, she goes, "Ah! Ah! Ah!" and falls down, dead. And her mother smiles, turns around, and goes back to the palace. A little while later, the 7 dwarfs come home, and they open the door, and they see little Snow White lying on the floor, and they go, "Oh no! Again?" So they shake her, she doesn't wake up. They slap her in the face, she doesn't wake up. They throw water on her, she doesn't wake up. They turn her over, dress laces aren't too tight. They run their hands through her hair, and they find the comb, and they pull it out. And as soon as they pull it out, little Snow White goes, and comes back to life. At just that moment, back in the palace, Snow White's mother is sitting down in front of her mirror, and she says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror says, "You, queen, are the fairest here. But little Snow White, living with 7 dwarves in the forest, is fairer than you by far." And the mother says, everybody now, she says, "What? I'm gonna kill that little punk!" So she goes to her closet. In her closet, she has a 3rd completely different old lady costume, because it must have been like a 3-for-1 deal at JCPenney for old ladies. Even if you don't want an old lady costume, you're like, that's a great deal, I'm gonna take this deal. So she puts on the 3rd old lady costume, and this time she takes an apple, and she covers half of the apple with poison. A poison so deadly that when the Brothers Grimm describe it in their story, they describe it not as a poisonous apple, but as a poisonous, poisonous apple. It's not just poisonous, it's poisonous, poisonous. It's very poisonous. The other half, she leaves totally clean. And she takes a basket of these apples, and she goes out into the forest, finds the little house, knocks on the door, little Snow White opens the door, and her mother disguised as a completely different old lady, which is weird, right? She must be thinking, like, what is this, like an old lady highway in front of my house? Why are there so many old ladies? Anyway, her mother says, "Little girl, would you like to try one of these delicious apples?" And Snow White says, "I'm not supposed to let any strangers into the house." And her mother says, "I don't want to come in. Wouldn't you like to try one of these apples?" And she says, "I'm not supposed to take anything from strangers." And her mother says, "It's such a shame. They're such delicious apples. Look, I'll try one." She picks up the poisonous, poisonous apple, and she turns the clean side of it to her face. And she takes a bite, and she chews and chews and says, "Oh, it's so delicious. Wouldn't you like to try it, little girl?" And little Snow White says, "Mm-hmm." She takes the apple, and as she does, she turns the poisonous, poisonous side of it to her face. And she takes a bite, she chews and chews, and she falls down, dead. And her mother smiles, turns around, and goes back to the palace. A little while later, the 7 dwarfs come home, and they open the door, and they see little Snow White lying on the floor, and they go, "Why does this girl keep dying on us?" She's like the worst house guest ever. Every time you leave, she dies. Anyway, they shake her, she doesn't wake up. They slap her in the face, she doesn't wake up. They throw water on her, she doesn't wake up. They turn her over, her dress laces aren't too tight. They run their hands through her hair, there's no comb. They shake her again. Slap her in the face again. They throw water on her again. She doesn't wake up. She's dead. Back in the palace, Snow White's mother sits down in front of her mirror, and she says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror looks back and says, "You are the fairest of them all." In the 7 dwarfs' little house, they take Snow White, beautiful even in death, and they put her into a coffin made of glass. And they keep her in the house so that every morning when they wake up and every evening when they go to bed, they can look at little Snow White and remember how good and how kind and how brave she was. Now, the end of the story is not the end of the story you might be expecting. If you've seen like the Disney movie, you probably think there's going to be a prince and he's going to kiss her and everything's going to be fine, right? I'll tell you right now, there's no kissing in the story because kissing is disgusting. There is a prince, though. He's coming through the forest, and he's tired, and he's thirsty, and he sees the little house, and he knocks on the door, and the dwarves invite him inside for something to eat, something to drink. And when he comes inside, he sees Snow White in the coffin. And as soon as he sees her, he falls madly in love with her. Which is weird, for 2 reasons. First of all, because she's like 7 years old, right? And second of all, she's dead. But he does, he falls totally in love with her, and he says to the dwarves, he says, "Please," he says, "will you let me take her with me?" And the dwarves are like, "No, that's creepy." That's literally what they say in the original version of the story. And he says, "Please," he says, "I'll pay you." And they say, "That's really creepy, now you definitely can't have her." And he says, "I'll die if you don't let me take her." And they say, "Well, don't die." So they give him the coffin, and he carries the coffin home with him. And he's so in love with little Snow White that everywhere he goes, he makes the servants carry her around with him. And yeah, so he like sits down for dinner, and they like put the coffin at the other end of the table, and he's eating dinner, and he's like, "I love you, honey." And she's like, and he goes to bed at night, they put the coffin next to his bed, and he's like, "I love you, honey." And she's like, and he goes to the bathroom. Never mind, forget it. Anyway, one day, he's like, I'm going to the bathroom, just bring her in. And the servant's like, "Oh, I'm so sick of carrying around this dead little girl." And he hits the coffin. And when he hits the coffin, little Snow White goes, "Ah!" and a chunk of poisoned apple flies up out of her mouth, hits the glass of the coffin, and goes like, down the glass. And the little Snow White goes, and comes back to life. And the prince rushes up to her and he says, "My true love!" And she says, "Who are you?" Well, she's been dead the whole time, right? But it's a fairy tale, so they fall in love and they get married. I know she's 7, but he could be like 10. You don't know. And there's a big wedding. Everyone's invited, all people from the kingdom, and all royalty from the neighboring kingdom. And who should arrive but Snow White's mother? When she walks in, Snow White sees her, calls the prince over, and points and says, "Down." The prince goes to his closet. And from his closet, he takes out 2 shoes made of iron. I don't know where he got the iron shoes. I doubt they're for sale at JCPenney for old ladies. Maybe Foot Locker for torture instruments? I'm not sure. So he takes the 2 iron shoes, and he puts them into a fire until they are glowing hot. Have you ever seen like metal when it's on the point of melting, like glowing hot? He takes them out of the fire with tongs, and he puts them down in front of Snow White's mother. And he makes Snow White's mother put on the glowing hot iron shoes and dance in them. And dance, and dance, and dance, until she falls down, dead. And Snow White and the prince live happily ever after. The end.